Hi everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. Today we'll be breaking down the new movie Michael, directed by Anthony Fuqua and starring Jafar Jackson, the real-life nephew to Michael Jackson. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. I finally got to see it today. I think I wrote maybe 5 to 6 pages of notes just on Michael itself, so lots and lots of things to say. Overall, I did fairly enjoy the film. It's like a feel-good movie besides all of the abuse going on with Joe Jackson and Michael throughout the film. It is very feel good though because Michael is very ambitious and trying to prove himself, and of course his music is just so monumental and really changed the music industry and how everything is produced and marketed, and just how everything kind of unfolds in the music industry was really highly influenced by Michael Jackson in the late 80s, 90s. And we get to see a little bit of that in this film. We definitely get to see his height, his success, and we get to see the fans and stuff, but I don't know if we really get to see just how much he changed. I felt like that's one of my big criticism of this film is that I felt like a lot of stuff is missing or kind of alluded to a lot of different things, but nothing is really elaborated on and nothing really evolves throughout the film. I would say particularly his vitiligo, also his drug addiction problem, and of course all of the allegations that we've heard from Michael Jackson specifically in the 2000s. So it does say his story will continue and that they're going to try and make a sequel to this film. I do think Michael will probably make quite a bit of money, but I know they're not allowed to speak about the legal issues that Michael went through, and that's kind of what a lot of this meat of the film was supposed to be about, and then they had to reshoot a lot of stuff. So I can definitely understand that, and I do agree with a lot of the criticisms that you can kind of just look up on YouTube a lot of these original performances and you probably gain more out of it than this film. I do think some of it was fun. I always like looking at the behind the scenes of how stuff is produced. And I do think it's interesting to see a little bit more of Michael's story. I am a bit younger and I was only in the second grade when he died. I do remember where I was when I found out about it. It was I think everybody kind of remembers that, but I hadn't really been, influenced by his music too much at that point. It's definitely kind of afterwards. I would say, funny enough, the Glee episode of Michael was what really brought me into loving Michael Jackson as an artist and kind of showed me a lot of his songs I had never heard before. Specifically Human Nature, which is one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. And I think that moment in this film is just glorious. It is so beautiful. And that's something that the film does very well. It does capture these moments. It is so bright. I love it. So much color, specifically in the Motown scenes, which is beautiful. I love that it's not a dingy film. It is very bright and beautiful and bold. Great colorization. I think they did great in post. I think the lighting's also really well done, but specifically the vocal isolations are just magnificent. I don't know if Jafar Jackson had a play in some of the singing. I don't know if they kind of mished him and Michael's vocals together or if it's just Michael's vocals, but it sounds glorious. When he's in the studio at that one point and they're trying to isolate his vocals, and then at certain points when he's singing Human Nature, it is just so beautiful and you feel that magic and that power and you understand why Michael Jackson is who he was. And I do think the younger actor who plays Michael gives a lot of charisma and he really brings the movie forward at the beginning, kind of lays the ground of how talented this young boy was and how he was kind of special and stood out amongst his brothers. His brothers did have a lot of talent, but I think unfortunately even this film kind of pushes them to the side. I don't know the Jackson 5 brothers very well. I only really know Michael Jackson. I know this film is called Michael, and they do kind of, again, allude to stuff, how one of the brothers didn't leave Motown, he stayed when the rest of the group left, and then I think they all come back together for the Triumph tour and for the Victory tour. So it seems like the other brothers, have a life of their own, and I kind of wish we would have elaborated a little bit more on that. Like, they didn't have to be like super prominent storylines, but it would have been nice if we knew just a little bit more about them, because we do get the inkling that Michael has such like a big age difference from them and just was never able to click with them socially growing up. And we see how he has so many friends and family through like animals, and he is close with his family, but he still feels like he doesn't necessarily belong. So, like, I just feel like they could have like done a little bit better of developing our side characters and the rest of his family. Even like Joe Jackson and his mother, I just feel like are a little underdeveloped. Like, I don't mind, having an abuser just being a straight up villain, okay, with Joseph Jackson and what they call him, Domingo, just playing him like an evil demon. Like, he's just horrible. Again, also, like, they show us him beating Michael at the beginning with a belt. But then there's another moment when they go into a bathroom together, and I'm like, are they alluding to like sexual abuse as well? And then as Michael gets older and his mother tries to start to speak up for him a little bit and say, oh, you can't beat him, he's an adult, he kind of Joe kind of uses his manipulation and gaslighting and the threat of losing the family towards Michael, so he finds a different way to abuse him. And I don't know, like, obviously we understand that Joe came from like a hard life and he didn't want his children to lose in life, specifically. Like, I think it's more him, like he was projecting himself onto his children. Why couldn't he be successful? So he's forcing his kids to be successful for him. And even when they are successful and give him this glorious house, he still wants control. I definitely think that's one of the biggest themes in this film, is the idea of control, trying to control an artist, trying to control a creative, trying to control a superstar, the greatest artist of all time. You're trying to put him in a box when he's trying to branch out and find his own path. And that's what abusers don't like. They don't like when you lose their control and you gain your own self independence and confidence. So I do think, even though I don't love the depiction of abuse, like, I feel like some of it is like a little bit much. Like, it's hard to watch like at the beginning of the film, and just like Michael's like kind of just like recoils and he's quiet. Like, from experience, that's how I react when facing abuse. So I did really relate to that. And you tell yourself like you're going to just stand up to the person and you're going to have all these things to say to them, and then you never can. You just stay silent and you don't know what to do. So I thought it was beautiful that we were able to give Michael a full circle at the end, and he was able to speak out and say this is like the farewell tour for the Jackson 5 and that they're going to move on. And he was able to speak up against his father. But then again, there's allegations against Michael, so I feel like it just kind of doesn't balance itself out very well. Um, there's a big talk about how Michael has something to say. He is unique. And since he was young, people saw that in him. And again, like, people are trying to control him. And when Michael leans towards things and beings and people who don't want to control him, he feeds into that. And we see that through his animals and how they just don't ask anything of him. They just reciprocate the love for him and let him take care of them, and they appreciate that. We see that through Bubbles. We see that through the rat. We see that with all the other different animals, like the llama and the giraffe and the peacocks and all the different animals. And then we also see it through his bodyguard, and how his bodyguard is really always there to protect him and try and protect his soul. I don't know if he does a really good job at that necessarily. Like, I feel like a lot of the time they kind of play into the social quo, like specifically the bodyguard and his mother and his brothers, and none of them really speak up for Michael when he's facing the most abuse. And I know they're all in a tricky situation with Joe, but I just, as someone who's gone through similar situations, you really want somebody to speak up for you in that moment. And then when they come to you years later, that one scene with Michael and his mother in the hospital room, and she said that I'm going to protect you. And I'm just like, girl, you never protected him. This man, he's a grown man, and you let him get to this point where now he's in the hospital with third-degree burns and nerve pain because nobody could say no to Joe. Nobody could stop him and tell him enough is enough. And Michael has to be like, it's not your fault. And it's tricky because obviously his mother was facing a lot of abuse as well from Joe, and it's a hard situation, but I have a little bit of anger and resentment towards family members who, specifically parents who don't protect you in the way that they're supposed to, and specifically with the fear of losing his family and just feeling so alone in the world. I just really relate to Michael in that way throughout this movie, and him trying to find his path and keep being thrown off it, and he makes off the wall, but he has to do that kind of on his off time, and then he succeeds with that, and then he gets a manager, and he tells gets the manager to fire his father as his original manager. So that depiction of the cycle of abuse I thought was shown pretty, like, well done. I don't know, it could have been done maybe a little bit more in depth, but for kind of like a blockbuster film, I thought it was interesting. I know a lot of people have problems with Coleman Domingo and a lot of the makeup that he has on him. And one of my big things is that Michael has a lot of self confidence issues that come from his father, one of them being his nose. And his father calls him like big nose throughout the film. And I'm like, Joe, I think you're projecting onto yourself because you have a crazy ass nose as well. So yeah, we see like Michael go through a lot of self-deprecating moments. We see him get not one but two nose jobs. He's also using a cream for his vitiligo, which again we never really talk about. We kind of see it maybe like one or two times. We often see him, put himself through a lot of trying times through his tour, a lot of exertion, has to go through all these different performances, whether that's being in his short films for his music videos, or that being, on the stage touring with the Jackson 5 or touring as himself as Michael. But, he's going through a lot, and especially after the Pepsi commercial where he gets burnt, and seeing like the exertion he has to put himself after that is very, very difficult. And you feel bad for him, like, especially with the nose job thing, because like even the doctor is like, why would you want to change yourself? And he's like, well, I just want to be perfect. And that's from all the times of his father beating him down and just telling him he's not good enough, he's not perfect, even though, people outside of his father knew that he was perfect, knew that he was destined to be this brilliant, greatest artist of all time. So, very interesting to see that balance. Um, so again, like, I think my biggest criticism is that we don't really dive deep into a lot of these meaty, gritty issues that makes Michael who he is, like the vitiligo, like the allegations, even just like his inner creative self. Like, I do think we get a couple interesting moments, like of him in the studio, kind of humming, coming up with a song, him being in the pool. Like, I think one of my favorite lines was that he needs to be like open for a creative idea to come. If he's not, then God's gonna give it to Prince. And I thought that was funny. And just seeing all the different like positive notes that he has up on his mirrors, and even when he's in the studio with Quincy, at one point he like does a little manifestation to himself to pump him up. He's like, you are strong, you are confident, you are beautiful, you're the greatest of all time. And like, I like that idea, that process, that artists ambition and initiative and drive to get them to where they are. And I think the scenes with the Bloods and the Crips for Bad was also very interesting, seeing him break down the dance before they shoot it for the music video, bringing in these different parts of culture and to try and, bring people together, because that was a big part of what he wanted to do. He believed humans, like, universal language was through song and dance. So I feel like we get like little glimpses of that, but it makes me disappointed that we don't get it throughout. Like, I do think this film is very big and grand, and like I said, I think it's very beautiful looking, but it's just lacking in a lot of the story to part. And I do think the performances are great. Like I mentioned, DeFar Jackson is very strong, so I very very, very much like it. I think he has a great stage presence and physicality. He really brings through the magical nature that Michael Jackson had. So I really do love all of that. And also near the end, I thought like the paparazzi flashing was like super cool, some like cool different lighting, and the idea that they go from like 66 to 88, like it's a big, vast piece of time. And to think that he has like 20 more years of his career, they're like, oh, his story ends. And you're like, oh, 2009 is quite a bit away, about 20 years later, and 20, 30 years later. And just thinking, mm, like, what's going to happen? Are you going to make a sequel? Like, it'll be very interesting to see how they're going to approach like the later half of his career, and just seeing like the physical transformation of Jafar also throughout the film, him through all the different years from like the 60s to the 70s to the late 80s is pretty interesting. The different hair, the different complexion, just like the eyes as well, like very bold, thick eyeliner, very, very interesting. So, yeah, I don't think this is a terrible movie. I definitely think it's like fun. I do think I like it a little bit better than the Bruce Springsteen film. I do think the Complete Unknown film maybe dived a little bit deeper into Bob Dylan and was able to bring out Bob Dylan's nature a bit better than the Michael film. But, like, I wasn't, like, the biggest fan of the Bob Dylan film. I thought it was pretty generic, and I didn't really grow up with Bob Dylan compared to Michael Jackson, so I do think I was a little bit more inclined and biased to this film than those other 2 biopics. And also, like, I really like Bohemian Rhapsody for the music and stuff, but the story in that's also kind of lacking, so like, it's hard to compare this. I feel like it's kind of like somewhere maybe in the middle of those. Like, I I just really don't love the Bruce Springsteen film, and I don't think it does the justice to the artist Bruce Springsteen, in my opinion. But I do think it dived maybe a little bit deeper into his emotions and into the hard times and the struggles he faced. Whereas with Michael, again, much more surface level, doesn't dive deep into any of that emotions or that inner monologue. So I definitely think the major thing missing is that inner monologue. It's just kind of like non-existent. We're just seeing a lot of things from the surface level. Again, we get alluded to different issues surrounding Michael's life, but we never dive deep into it. So, yeah, a little disappointing. I do think the music, like I said, it's great. The vocals sound fantastic. Terrific sound, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised, if this movie stays strong, makes a lot of money, if it gets any like sound nominations throughout the year. I don't think it would win anything, but the sound is pretty strong. And like I said, love the colorization and all of different sets and the costumes. Pretty fantastic, very accurate to the real life depictions. So, yeah, I had fun, but I do think a lot of depth is missing from the film, unfortunately. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think of Michael in the comments down below. I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts and opinions. I definitely had a fun time. I was grooving in my seat to all the different Michael Jackson songs, specifically Human Nature. Like I said, I love that. And I thought Billie Jean was fantastic, just seeing, kind of like his rise and his fame and seeing all the different fans' reaction, and then ending on bad and seeing like all the fans faint and stuff like that was super cool too. But I do think this could have been a little bit better, a little bit bolder, and diving deeper into the emotion of who Michael Jackson is as a person and who he is as a creative. So, yeah, very interesting. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribed and hit the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I'm covering Euphoria season 3 right now, and I'm also covering The Testament season 1. So if you guys like those shows, make sure you guys follow for more. Also, like the video if you guys enjoyed my review, and like I said, leave a comment. I always like replying to your guys' comments and getting the conversation going. I'm so grateful for all your guys' interaction, as it really helps to grow my channel, push me out into the algorithm for other like-minded cinema folks to come and join my community. I'm also on all the major social media platforms. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Serialized, and the Awards Expert app, all at Willow D. Steele. So give me a follow, engage. I'm so grateful for this beautiful community that I'm flourishing here. So Yeah, let me know what you guys think of Michael down below. And until my next video, keep getting lost in film, guys. Bye.